Arsenal versus Real Madrid. How Vinicius Junior could leave Madrid, ladies and gentlemen, unless all three parties involved in this situation, Vinicius Junior, National Football Club, and Real Madrid, become very serious and clarify exactly what they want. This could be a transfer story that lasts all the way until deadline day on 4 September 2026. If these three parties can clearly decide what they want and move straight to the point, this deal could be resolved much earlier. But if everyone continues to wait and see what happens, this story could drag all the way to deadline day. So today, I want to explain exactly what is happening and how a deal for Vinicius Junior to become an Arsenal player this summer could potentially happen. So, let's talk about Vinicius Junior. Vinicius Junior is someone who is deeply connected to Real Madrid. He was one of the players who helped convince other top players, including Bellingham, to join Real Madrid. He has always shown how much he believes in the club. But now, the problem is his contract. Vinicius is currently earning around 480,000 naira per week, while some of Real Madrid's biggest earners are reportedly receiving around 600,000 naira per week. Vinicius believes that, based on what he has achieved and what he contributes to Real Madrid, he deserves to be among the highest paid players at the club. He reportedly wants around 25 million euros per year, while some of the club's top earners are receiving around 31.25 million euros per year. So, Vinicius is not necessarily asking Real Madrid to give him exactly the same contract as everyone else. His argument is that his salary should reflect his importance to the team, but Real Madrid's position appears to be different. The club reportedly does not want to meet his demands, and that is where the problem begins. Vinicius still wants to remain at Real Madrid and could decide to run down his contract. Remember, he has less than 12 months remaining on his current deal. That means if Real Madrid do not sell him this summer and he does not sign a new contract from January 2027, he could be able to negotiate a pre-contract agreement with another club and leave Real Madrid as a free agent at the end of the season. So Real Madrid have a decision to make. They can sell Vinicius this summer and receive a huge transfer fee. They can offer him a new contract and try to convince him to stay. Or they could allow him to remain at the club, run down his contract, and eventually leave for free. And this situation reminds me of what happened with Cristiano Ronaldo. Ronaldo had his own contract disagreement with Real Madrid, and eventually he left the club to join Juventus. Could something similar happen with Vinicius Junior? That is the big question. Vinicius has to decide whether he's willing to accept Real Madrid's offer and continue his career at the club, or whether he wants to move on. Now let's look at Real Madrid. Real Madrid appear to be preparing themselves for every possible scenario. They are not sitting around waiting for Vinicius to make the first move. The club is looking at alternatives. Kylian Mbappe can play from the left wing. Real Madrid have also been looking at other attacking options, and they are reportedly prepared to spend more than 100 million on Yajan Mendy. The idea is simple. If Real Madrid can bring in a young player who could eventually develop into a player of Vinicius' level, they could potentially save themselves a lot of money in the future. So Real Madrid may believe that signing another winger is not necessarily about replacing Vinicius immediately. It could also be preparation for the possibility that Vinicius eventually leaves. But Vinicius reportedly still believes he wants to stay at Real Madrid and run down his contract. That is why this situation is so complicated. Now let's talk about Arsenal. Arsenal have positioned themselves in a very interesting way. A few years ago, if you told Arsenal fans that Vinicius Junior could eventually play for Arsenal, some people would probably laugh at the idea. But things have changed. If Arsenal manage to sign Vinicius Junior, it could make their squad considerably stronger and give them another weapon to compete at the highest level in the Champions League. And we have seen how clubs like PSG are strengthening their squads because they want to continue competing for the Champions League. Arsenal want to be at that level as well. Look at their squad. They already have quality defenders. They have quality midfielders. What they really need is another elite attacking player on the left wing who can decide matches. Vinicius Junior has already proven that he can do exactly that. Arsenal have considered other options in the past, They looked at Yajon Mendy, but the player reportedly decided to join PSG. Arsenal then turned their attention to Vujamogan. When that did not work out, they took a step back. And now the name that is reportedly becoming a major target is Vinicius Junior. Arsenal reportedly believe Vinicius is the type of player they need. And when you look at the Brazilian players already around the club, there are people who could potentially help convince him. Gabriel Magalhaes is there. Bruno Guimaraes could also have a role in convincing Vinicius about the possibility of joining Arsenal. Of course, if Vinicius arrives, there could be competition for places, and someone like Martinelli could potentially see his position affected. But Arsenal will be signing Vinicius because they believe he can take the team to another level. But here's the biggest question. Can Arsenal afford Vinicius Junior? Vinicius is reportedly looking for a salary of more than 30 million euros per year, which would put his weekly wages above 500,000 naira. That is serious money. And Arsenal already have players who are earning huge amounts. Saka is one of those players who has already proven his value to the club. And depending on bonuses and performance-related payments, some players' total earnings can become significantly higher than their basic weekly salary. That is the kind of financial level Vinicius believes he belongs in. But there is a potential problem. If Arsenal bring in a player earning more than 500,000 naira every week and he does not perform, it could create tension inside the dressing room. Other players could start asking questions. They could say, if Vinicius is earning this much, what about us? And that could force Arsenal to improve the contracts of other important players such as David Raya, Gabriel Magalhaes, Declan Rice, and Bukayo Saka. Because if you increase one player's salary dramatically, other players may also demand better contracts. However, if Vinicius comes in and performs at the level everyone expects, scores goals, creates assists, and helps Arsenal win major trophies, the situation becomes completely different. Then everyone can look at it and say, the money was worth it. And then there is Mikel Arteta. This is another part of the story that we cannot ignore. If Mikel Arteta is genuinely pushing for Vinicius Junior, it means he believes he can manage a player of that level. Because Vinicius is no longer a young player who is simply waiting for instructions. He has already played at the highest level. He has won major trophies. He has played in Champions League finals. He has established himself among the world's biggest football stars. And when you reach that level, managing the player becomes different. You cannot treat him exactly like a young academy player. You have to understand his personality, his ambitions, his expectations, and his desire to play important matches. Even top coaches can face problems when they have superstar players who expect to play every important match. That is why this potential transfer is much bigger than simply buying a left winger. It would affect Real Madrid, Arsenal, Vinicius Junior, the dressing room, the wage structure, and potentially the entire transfer market. So ladies and gentlemen, this is why I believe the Vinicius Junior situation is one of the biggest stories to watch this summer. If Vinicius Junior, Arsenal and Real Madrid all make their positions clear, this deal could be resolved before deadline day. But if everyone continues to wait, negotiate, and see what happens with the player's contract, this could become a saga that lasts all the way until 4 September 2026. For now, Vinicius Junior to Arsenal is a transfer story you definitely need to watch. Let's see how this one develops. Follow Ball TV Daily for more football news and transfer updates. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Ball TV Daily 1. See you in the next video.